resurrection. On such the second death hath no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. That 1,000 years is the millennial reign of Jesus Christ. So in one day of time, Jesus Christ comes back to this earth. Don't you look forward to that day? I mean, listen, that's every great day you've ever experienced rolled into one and multiply that by 10,000. In one day, Jesus Christ is going to come back to this back to this earth, and the work is going to be accomplished in nature that scientists have been working on for 6,000 years to bring in. We spent some time a couple of weeks ago just talking about if you were talking about trying to save somebody, right? If you're talking about like, listen, I think I could get you to heaven. Well, that's not all salvation is. That's not all Jesus Christ does. Can you give somebody a perfect body, right, that will live forever and not sin? Like you couldn't, science can't design that. Even if they could design a way for you to live forever, they couldn't design that. And even if they could design that, even if science could design a perfect body, they couldn't fix nature, right? They couldn't fix the planet that you're on. They couldn't make it perfect again. They can't make the lion lay down with the lamb. They can't make the lion eat grass like an ox. They can't make those things happen. They can't get nature in line. So there's a lot more that Jesus Christ does than even just your salvation. We look at what Jesus Christ does in a rather kind of self-centered fashion. There's a lot more to Christ. There's a lot more to what God has in store than just what is in it for you and me. And I was listening to some preaching. I was thinking about it. I was thinking about some of the sermons on that went on during the revival meeting, and the shorthand phrase of it that occurred to me was that most people have a self-centered Christianity rather than having a Christ-centered self. Right? Right? We look at Christianity is about me and what God can do for me. You got that thing reversed. It is about what God can get from you, right? If you lived your life as though Christ was the center of it, instead of Christ is in my life, no, like my whole point is to be in what he is doing, not trying to get him into what I'm doing. Okay. Um, I've got a savior who in one day is going to accomplish what groups of scientists among all the PhDs and THDs and MDs haven't been able to accomplish in 6,000 years, generation after generation. And at this time, God plays his biggest joke on educated people that he ever pulled off, because when the simplest, dumbest, humblest sinner gets saved, he has reserved in the millennium ahead of him for his own disposal, use, and profit all the completed achievements which science has been working for 6,000 years. I mentioned a guy that I'd found. I don't even remember the guy's name now. The guy spends something like $2 million a year in anti-aging therapies to live as long as possible. The guy's like a billionaire, so he can afford to do it. But here's the crazy thing, right? The poorest Unionvillian that gets saved, who doesn't got 2 cents to rub together, when he gets saved, he gets a perfect version, not just like, oh, I'm going to live to be 125. He gets an eternal, perfect version of what this guy has been spending millions of dollars on to get a worse version of. And that's a joke that the Lord plays on educated humanity. If we're going to fix this, we're going to fix that, and we're going to fix this. And you've got people right now, they're trying to figure out the climate. Boy, what's climate? Boy, the problem is the climate. We need to do this to get the climate in line, right? And even some of your guys that used to be that way are saying, I don't think that we make that big of an impact. Even your Elon Musks are like, I don't think that we actually do that much to the climate. Some of these guys are starting to figure it out, but besides that, you've got governments trying to figure out, oh, we're going to control the weather. And then what's Jesus Christ going to do? In one day, he's going to perfect the whole thing. And boy, wouldn't that just rub your nose in it if your entire life was spent studying and analyzing data? Oh man, that just rubs me wrong. Data. Oh, barf. Data. We're data driven. Oh my, no. And then go through, and we've studied all the science. And the science, most of the time, the science says whatever the scientists want the science to say, right? It's kind of like polls, right? You know what the polls say? Whatever the pollster designed the poll to come out to, right? It's how we designed the questions, and that's how we got the answers. It's we went to, we asked this one singular group a question, and surprise, surprise, they answered the question the way we wanted them to. So, congratulations, you're up in the polls, and you're down in the polls because we don't like you, and we don't really like you over here, right? In one day, Jesus Christ throws that whole thing in the trash can. I mean, I'm excited for that. I don't know about you. I'm kind of getting tired of the world that we're in where you can't tell what's real. Everything is fake. Everything is fake. I had a conversation with a teacher today. We got talking about how to grade homework. I said, listen, man, I don't spend a whole lot of time worrying about homework because you know what? You live in a world right now where they've got the textbook is online. They've got Chat GPT. They can ask the AI what the answer is, any question. They've got photo math. You take a picture of it and it'll tell you how to do it and what the answer is. Listen, that homework that's sitting in front of me means absolutely nothing. It could all be fake. All that I know is real is after they take the test and they have access to none of it, what they actually know. You can't tell if that homework is real or fake. Why spend any time with it? The kids that are going to do it are going to do it, and the kids that aren't are going to find 15 different ways to cheat, and you're not going to be able to tell if they did or didn't. You're living in a fake world. You can't tell if well, we got an audio clip of this politician saying this thing. Man, they can fake all that stuff. We got a picture. We have a video. They can fake all of it. They can make you believe whatever you want to believe. Well, man, one of these days, the Lord is going to set this thing right with truth, and it's going to be real. It's not just going to be. It's not going to be an illusion. It's not going to be a hologram. It's not going to be a cheap trick. And you know what? Even the poorest of the saved get that kind of stuff, and they get to enjoy that. It reminds me of somebody. I was listening to this. They were talking about where we've come as a society. It used to be, if you had your Bilderbergers and your big moguls, and I'm trying to think whoever these guys were. I was thinking of all the big last names. Your railroad barons and all these, the richest people in the world kind of thing. The richest people in the world at one time didn't own a refrigerator or an air conditioner or a toaster or a microwave. But that's to me, that's kind of a picture of what Jesus Christ is going to do for you, is that the richest people in the world today aren't going to get what you got unless they're saved. Okay? And a lot of those folks don't even realize that, but and the Lord's not going to expend one dime or one drop of sweat for all their accomplishment. And I appreciate the Lord's sense of humor, that all the work humanity is put in to replicate what Jesus Christ is going to do comes to naught, and he does it in a day. He doesn't. I love how little time the Lord spends on some things. I'm frustrated by how much time he spends on other things. Right? You say, I'm frustrated with the Lord, how much time he takes. Yeah, he says, and behold, I come quickly. Brother, the Lord's definition of coming quickly and my definition of coming quickly have been two different things. The Lord's time and my time are not always the same time.
We're like little kids.
It's yes. We are on little kid time. Are you coming? Can we go? How long is it going to be? I feel like the kid in the back of the car. Are we there yet? Are you coming yet? Are you coming yet? Or are you ready yet? You're like, I mean, listen, I sound exactly like one of my little kids that is waiting on me to do something. Well, and I'm sure the Lord is actually behaving much the same way. Well, my kids will ask me something as soon as I sit down with a sandwich. I was like, listen, I'm going to eat this sandwich first, and then I'll help you with your whatever. And I get done with the sandwich. Are you ready? Are you ready to go? It's like, well, I've dumped my plate off, but I'm over. It looks like there's some dishes that need done. I'm going to do some dishes, before I go and do that. It's like, are you ready yet? Are you going to go? It's like, well, let me take my shoes off here for a second. And, there's always just one little more thing to do before you do what they're asking you to do. I wonder if the Lord's just like that a little bit. I don't know, maybe not, but there's something wrong with the brute creation, right? There's something wrong with what you're seeing out there. And any man who's ever studied natural history or archaeology knows that there's something wrong with the planet that you're on. Okay? It groans. I mean, it's not perfect the way that it is. I mean, um, you say whatever you want, but like, volcano or earthquake happens in Haiti and I mean, thousands of people die. Your volcano goes off in Hawaii and people lose their homes and lose their land. I mean, I watched their account. I think it's called Impossible. And there was an earthquake over there in the South Pacific, and there was a family vacationing in it's like Indonesia or somewhere like that, and a tsunami hits, and the family was staying at a resort and just scattered the family. They all survived. I don't know how and they were all scattered to the wind. I mean, I think the mom and two kids were together, and maybe the dad and another kid was off by themselves, and they all found their way back to each other. It was just, man, just unreal. The only thing that bothered me about the whole thing is you watch the whole movie and God doesn't get the credit for anything. But I mean, you look at what goes on in the world between earthquakes and tsunamis and wildfires and all that kind of stuff. There's something wrong. Something wrong. You don't listen. You know how many wildfires you've seen on Mars? How many earthquakes on Mars? You don't see any of that stuff. Why? You know what? Pure sin isn't on Mars or Venus or the moon. The Earth has a sin problem, and it's moaning and groaning within itself. It heaves, it swells. Its roots are dug deep in volcanic lava. Its tides come and go and heap up tidal waves. I mean, I've got no interest on being in the ocean anywhere. But man, talk about something just nearly give me nightmares. You remember that movie, The Perfect Storm?
Yeah.
And you see that fishing boat and you see these waves, and these waves are like the size of skyscrapers. Who in their right mind wants to be out there? You see videos of some of these like oil tankers or the big cargo ships, and these things are absolutely massive, and these things are being rocked by these massive waves out there on the coast of South Africa and South America, where they come through some of those straits. I think it's the coast of South America. It's like one of the most dangerous places in the world to take a ship through there. And just the waves are insane. And that's your earth. There's something wrong. It splits in earthquakes. It has chasms and gorges in it. It's scarred. I mean, that's exactly what um, the Canyon is. It's a scar. It's left over from the flood. You go over there, you go up into Alaska and look at Mount St. Helens. You know what happened after it blew? It created all that ash and rock and everything, caused a flood. And you know what that flood produced? A canyon in a matter of a couple of weeks. And you know what? Here's the amazing thing. It had all the rock strata that the Grand Canyon has. They tell you all those different layers of rock means that it took millions of years to get that Grand Canyon. Took 2 weeks to make one up in Alaska, and they recorded it. Don't believe everything they tell you. But you know what? The most beautiful things on this earth have thorns. You ever think about that? Just the most beautiful, I mean, a rose is just covered in thorns. Just about everything good that you can look at has a deadly nature to it. I mean, you go out west and you look at the Grand Teton Mountains and you get up there, and you get there at the wrong time, that place will kill you. You get blown in with an avalanche, or you get blown in a snowstorm, and you stuck in there in a beautiful place, and you'll be dead. You ask the whole Donner Party, things didn't work out too well for them. There's some beautiful places. Even like I said, even the most beautiful things that God ever blessed a family with, a baby. What does that baby do? Just about as soon, I mean, just that thing is just as precious as can be. And I almost did. It's evil of me maybe, but I like talking to new parent or parents of newborn babies and just ask them how are things going. You know what I'm hoping they'll tell me? The truth. And some man, I've had some. It made me angry. Oh, they're just sleeping through the night. I was like, shut your mouth. Don't talk to me for a while. None of ours did. None of them. Uh, Enoch still doesn't sleep through the night. He's not crying, but he is coming in. The other night, Caitlin put him to bed, And it was like 5 minutes after she put him to bed, she went downstairs, and he comes traipsing downstairs, and he's already got, he's a little liar, little excuse maker. You know what he said? He says, I thought I heard you ask for me. Nobody asked for you, buddy. Nobody asked for you. That's a pretty good one, but nobody asked for you. Go back to bed. I thought I heard you say my name. I thought I heard you needed me. No, buddy. You're not useful enough for anybody to call you down to need you. What would we have called you for? Oh my. Yeah, yeah, Sam, you've been studying Sam. Oh, was it you? Was it that was the Lord? Go back to bed. Yeah, yeah. But you know what? Even that baby cries. And there's a little smile, a little evil smile smirks across my face whenever I see a family bring home a baby, and it's like, oh man, we ain't getting any sleep. I'll pray for you, but I'm pretty happy to hear that. Because that's where we were. So, but that baby will scream and holler and rage. And what it is, it's a precious little bundle of joy, isn't it? Except when it's not. This beautiful creation, that baby can lie in such filth that after 2 days, if you didn't change that diaper, you couldn't stand to have it in the same room. And if you've got any like mine, sometimes they're just fine with that. It's like, well, I don't know what's wrong with you. There's something wrong with that quote unquote old Mother Nature. And there is no Mother Nature, there is no Mother Earth, but there's something wrong with this Earth that Darwin wasn't able to diagnose. But the Bible talks about it. Come over to Genesis 3:17. You know exactly what I'm going to get into here. Genesis 3:17. It says, "And unto Adam he said, Because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground. The ground is cursed." You know, that's such an easy, basic truth, but you know what? There's a lot of pastors that don't know that. I told this story before, but I went to Southwest Baptist University down in Bolivar, and I wish I remember what the passage was that he was referencing. He said something about, now why do you think that is? And it was pretty basic. And I raised my hand. I was really surprised nobody else raised their hand. I said, because of the curse on the earth. And he looked at me like I had four heads. He said, what curse? I was like, are you kidding me, man? I just put my hand in. Listen, after 2 years of that, actually about after a year and a half of that, I said, I'm getting out of here, man. They can't teach me any Bible. They can't teach nothing. They don't know anything. You know more than what a PhD at a Baptist theological class knows about the Bible. And he's teaching Bible. You know more than he does. You kids up here know more than that guy does. Don't let anybody fool you and think that if you've got a theological degree and you're standing in front of a group of people at a something called a university that makes you knowledgeable. It doesn't. Don't let any of those people bully you. And they will bully you. They tried to bully me. I was like, fine, I'll leave. I'll go someplace where I can learn something. I real quick found out I knew more on some of the stuff than they, and I'm not trying to be arrogant. They didn't know it. This guy didn't know what the curse was. And there it is in Genesis chapter 3, verse 17, right? Uh, Saying, thou shalt, or let's see, and hast eaten of the tree. Let me come back here. Thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground. For thy sake in sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. And man, I mean, you ladies, if you're going to be mad at somebody, be mad at Eve. But I tell you what, you men, you got just as much right to be mad at Adam. You think, I mean, I don't even think that we've got figured out just how good he had it. You've never known how good he had it. Now, like, I don't mean to get deeply personal, but evidently, on Eve's side, you were never meant to have any pain in childbearing. Well, doesn't that kind of tick you off? That ought to just flat get you fired up. Like, man, listen, we probably have a couple of more if they wouldn't for just all the labor and all the other stuff that she had to go through. My goodness. It's like, no, we're not going through that again. That's a hard thing to watch somebody go through. The Lord's got to do something special to wipe your memory to say, let's have another one. Any man who's ever farmed knows that this is true. You grow crops and the ground chaps and cracks and it gets no rain. You get rain and it washes away the seed. If you get the right amount of rain, the crop comes up and you can't get a good stand because the grass chokes it out. You hoe out the Johnson grass and sweat and strain and you get rid of the grass and the bugs get the crop. Then you spray the bugs, and by the time you put enough spray on the crop to kill the bugs, you've got so much poison in the food that it gives you cancer when you eat it. I'm not poking at anybody. It's just how it was never meant to be that way. I mean, you think about, I mean, listen, you think about everything that you've got to put on the ground right now to get it to grow. And the ground's deplete, you know, it's like, well, your ground's depleted of this mineral and that mineral and this mineral and that. It's never meant to be that way. Um, you know, then the doctors say, well, I think you get cancer from drinking ice water. It's like, I think that there's a lot of easier explanations. There's something wrong with nature. Um, Now, I think that there's also something wrong with you. And I got this. I don't know. I mean, I won't put his name on it in case he doesn't want me to say it. But I was talking to a pastor, and he brought up a pretty good point. He says, don't you think that maybe after all these generations and how sin has corrupted so many different things, that your body is part of that creation, and that some of that cancer and some of these diseases that we're seeing are just generation after generation after generation, and your genetics are breaking down, and you just can't handle what a previous generation could handle. You're falling apart on the genetic level. I mean, listen, if I was to think about anything, and it was, and you know, obviously I look at it from being inside God's plan, but just from a physical standpoint, I think that's certainly possible with our boys. It's just, you know what, generation after generation after generation, and things begin to break down, right? It's been 6,000 years. You're not evolving into something better. I don't know if you haven't figured that out yet, but you know, I've watched enough sports stuff. You're not faster than you were 100 years ago. We're really the people that you're seeing that are 7 foot tall. The only reason it seems like there's more of them because they're all in the NBA and they're all on TV. The same proportion of people at 7 foot are now as there were always, right? The great big strong guys, you know, nothing has changed. You're not better, you're not faster, you're not stronger. Mankind as a species is not improved. In fact, you're decaying, you're breaking down. I'd say that that's every bit as much the explanation for your cancers and your diseases as pretty much anything else. And you know what? That gives me about as I would rather think of it that way than to think that the contrails and whatever, the food or the drink or the cell phones. You know, I remember at one point, Dad had found something. He's like, well, you know, it's like you're having another kid, and you know, I think this was with Enix. It's like, man, you know, the radio waves and the Wi-Fi is a huge big deal was on Wi-Fi, and Wi-Fi giving you cancer and Wi-Fi, you know, giving you diseases and all this stuff. I said, Dad, I said, if we're supposed to avoid Wi-Fi signals, we're shot.
Yeah.
I said, they are everywhere you go. You know, if you're trying to get me to take the Wi-Fi out of my house, okay, fine, but I'm going to get cancer from the one at the Chick-fil-A and the Walmart and the school where I work, and you're not going to be able to avoid it. If it did cause you cancer, you couldn't avoid it. You're going to get it or you're not going to get it. And that's where it seems like a cop out to so many things, but safety is of the Lord. You're either going to get it or you're not going to get it, and the Lord is in charge of all that stuff. But you know what the death rate is today compared to the birth rate? It's 100%. The death rate is 100%. Isn't that wonderful? They have not gotten one person out of the 8 billion people on the planet right now. They've not got one person that they've been able to get hacked so that they can live forever. They've not hacked death. Isn't science wonderful? Just think. For every one person born, one person dies. Isn't scientific achievement marvelous? I appreciate the fact that scientists can keep me living 10 more years than I normally would have lived, or maybe that your quality of life is better, although it seems like a lot of the times they can get you to live longer, but your quality of life is worse, right? You're no better. Yes, we can keep you alive on morphine and it, try to keep you out of pain, but that's really all we can do for you. And they know that they can't figure it out, which is why they're trying to get you hooked into a machine. We can't figure out the body. And the problem is sin. I appreciate doctors. Listen, I am glad that I do not live in Oregon Trail days. I don't know why that's my benchmark, but that's often where I think it's like Oregon Trail. It's like I'm right here right now, or I could have been on the Oregon Trail. It's like I wouldn't have survived it, man. I was like, let's not. I had to I had to deal with an ingrown toenail at 2:30 in the morning. I was like, man, I would not have survived on the Oregon Trail. The stuff. I mean, listen, I take an allergy pill every morning. I would not have survived on the Oregon Trail. I was like, there would have been one wagon that just would have been Kleenexes. It's like we got our stuff and we got a second trailer pulled up to that trailer, and that's just our Kleenex trailer. That's all that is. You know it's true. And all the other stuff. Well, I know they didn't exist. They probably didn't need them like I need them now. They go, shirt tails. Yeah, they just use something else. But um, man, I wouldn't have made it. You know, uh, you got your doctors and hospitals and lawyers and undertakers, and they're going to get your money. But if you think I'm a big enough fool to think that science has done anything in the last 100+ years except make the world easier to unite for the Antichrist, you don't know a Bible believer when you meet one. Everything that has gone on out there has made it easier for the Antichrist to get everybody together under one banner. Everything is about oneness. Get it all under one. Get it all under one. Now, you might have a couple of hiccups and a couple of roadblocks that pause it for a little bit, and that's the best thing that you could hope for if you're political. It's like, boy, Lord, put somebody in there to kind of pause it a little bit, right? To give us a little bit of a break, to give us a little bit of a reprieve. And if you think that you got somebody who can give you a little bit of a reprieve, boy, pray that they get into office. I mean, listen, if the powers that be are ordained of God, what does that say about our country? About what God thinks of our country? When you get some of the people you've got, it's like, man, God must hate this country to let that person run it, right? You know what you're going to find out in November? What God thinks of America. That's what you're going to figure out. You're not going to figure out who got in because of the popular vote or who got in because of the electoral college. You're going to figure out who God put in there because of who he ordained to be there. And I guess you'll figure out how soon the Antichrist is coming. I don't know. Okay. All right. The only improvement in science in the last 100 years has been in communication and transportation. You notice that those are the only two things that get cheaper over time. Now you say, "Oh, I don't think transportation gets cheaper." Okay, let's come back to our Oregon Trail illustration. How long did it take you to get from St. Louis to Oregon in the 1800s? 6 months. I got to Oregon in half a day, less than half a day, if I didn't have layovers and all that other garbage. Right? There's no way of telling. At that time, I still had to wear a mask. And I didn't need a wagon of tissues because I had the allergy pill. Thank you, science. But you know what? If you backtrack the inflation standards of how much it would cost to get you from St. Louis to Oregon, I bet it's cheaper to get on that plane. And you say, well, it's pretty expensive. Well, it's expensive comparatively, but boy, in terms of what's your time worth? Well, if you had to walk across the United States to get there, I bet you'd say it's worth your money. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But then, so transportation's gotten cheaper. Now, I'm not saying your car is cheap or anything like that, but so is communication. Communication is one of those things that has only gotten cheaper. I remember, I mean, I can go into the history lesson here. We better find a stopping spot. But I remember what cell phone bills used to be for kids I went to high school with whenever they went over their minutes on their texts because of the blackout times. Man, some of those kids, you thought that they were never going to see the light of day again whenever they started texting somebody at the wrong time of day. Now everything's unlimited. I'm not saying it's cheap, but it's cheaper. What they're offering you. I mean, listen, it's unlimited data, it's unlimited this and that, and man, you never used to be able to get that. It's gotten cheaper. So that's the only thing that has improved is transportation and communication. That's it.
Brings us all together.
Right. And both of those things bring people together. You want to get people physically together and you want to get people socially together. You need both transportation and communication, and you better believe the Antichrist is interested in both. And this is just my hypothesis. I don't know if this will happen. I don't know if you watch any of this SpaceX stuff and all these rockets and all that stuff. It wouldn't surprise me if they figure out they can't get to Mars, so they use all those rockets to get you from here to Australia in about 3 hours or less. And just whoop, orbital land, orbital land, orbital land. Because right now, you know what they can't do? You can't fly a supersonic plane over a populated area because of the sonic boom. Well, it doesn't matter if you're in outer space. Transportation, man. So I could get into a whole lot of deal on Elon Musk, but you know what he is? He's transportation, cars and spaceships, and communication, satellites, all that kind of stuff. Satellites and X, Twitter. So you watch that guy, keep an eye on that guy. Okay. And all that does is get the world together under the devil. We'll pick it up with Revelation 13, 7 through 8 as part of this. Revelation 26 next time. And we'll go let those people know that ice cream and cake are ready.